This is Coach Jason Ballard, and I'm a business wingman. Over the years, I've learned a lot from working in our family construction business, serving as a senior officer in the United States Air Force, and running 12 different organizations around the world. Many people helped me get to where I am today, and it's my mission in life to serve as a personal wingman to others. That's what this podcast is all about, providing knowledge, tools, resources, and mentorship to help people soar to their highest altitude. And welcome back to the Soar Higher Podcast. This is your host, Coach Jason Ballard. It's a real privilege to be with you today. Got a really great show in store for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about, one of my favorite topics, leadership and some different aspects of leadership. Today, we're talking about how, as a leader, to continuously revitalize, grow, and remain on top of the market you're in, regardless of industry, regardless of the size business, regardless of anything. How do you, as a leader, navigate your team, your organization, your people through the dynamics of today and the fast-paced nature of how things work today, and the adversity and the challenges we face? How do you keep your team focused, revitalized, fresh, relevant, and current and competitive? And so today we have the privilege of having an expert on the show that's going to kind of talk us through that, share his valuable experiences that we can all really learn from. So today I have the privilege of having Mike Murphy on the show. Mike is the managing director of a business consulting firm based out of Washington, D.C. called Sunstone Management Advisors. He has over 30 years of executive leadership experience running numerous insurance and healthcare type organizations, and is widely known for his ability to transform and scale businesses and reach unheard of results on a very continuing basis, which is really remarkable. So without further ado, Mike, my friend, welcome to the show. Yeah, we're excited to have you, Mike. Tell us a little bit about you. You've got a phenomenal background, man. You've done a lot of different things, and that's really hard to do
It is.
repeatedly.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
It has been quite a journey. There are a series of, left-hand turns on my resume, and I euphemistically say that's because I couldn't hold a job. But the reality is that I got some great advice early on from one of my career Sherpas who said to me, and this advice holds forever, is don't go the road often traveled. Constantly do, especially in the early part of your career, constantly do very different things to build out your skill set. And so that's been my journey. So very few jobs that I go into from the time I started, even to today, did I know what I was doing when I got in the door. I had enough skills to be effective, but then I was also learning something. And that's also a message for, the hiring. If you hire somebody to the school who's been there, done that, as opposed to somebody who's ready to take on a challenge and is going to grow and learn into the job, you're going to end up with a superstar at the end of that cycle. So that was a lesson I got early. And so I just did a lot of different things. And so my journey started inside the big company. I was a history major, so I'll constantly make absurd and references to history to make sure my major is being put to work here. I got my back shelf. I have accounting for dummies because I had to learn a lot about finance and accounting. So at any rate, I started inside the big company and worked for a large, venerable healthcare managed care company for 15 years, and 13 and a half of which I didn't even have a resume together, going up the corporate ladder and following my Sherpa's advice and doing lots of different things, anything from sales to finance to healthcare operations. I was doing it all. But then, I woke up one day and I realized that having a bigger job inside the big company wasn't having a better job for me personally, and that euphemistically, I don't breed in captivity. So I was really looking for some things to stretch out and more biased towards action than kind of the bigger company. And while it was a great experience and I have considered it my alma mater and it helped shape me, I want to go on and do something else. And I went to do a very entrepreneurial thing. That's what, and It was going to a company that was smaller than accounts I had at the big company, and so big learning experience when you can feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you're not dealing with 50,000 employees, but 50, and people are dependent on you. So a different sort of pressure. And then I did a series of what I would call entrepreneurial things, where some hard lessons were learned, and they weren't as much fun. And those were companies saying, "Oh, I want to change. I want to do something different. Hey, we got this new cool thing we're doing, and you're kind of an innovator, and come on in." And a lot of those companies, it's the ultimate definition of madness, right? Because they want
Yep.
something different in the result, but they don't really want to do anything different in terms of what they're doing. And so, as my Irish grandmother says, it only ends in tears, you know. So it's just, it wasn't a lot of fun, but good learning experience, and met some great people. And then really the back part of my career has been where I feel like I've really been able to hit the stride in the small to mid-sized businesses, transformational things, turnarounds. In many cases, really very small companies to that weren't quite going concerns to others that were, and I've had some great success there. And I think the last thing I would say is, if you ever hear me tout a property that's going to be the next great thing, I'm not exactly Warren Buffett, because I've had 4 scenarios that I went into that were like almost done inside of 90 to 120 days. Now, I'm not talking
Nice.
about you take the job and, hey, the exec washroom isn't what I thought it was going to be. No. Like literally, like, we're out of funds. Last one in a bank at Friday doesn't get paid. That kind of like, oh my gosh. And but had to do a lot of firefighting, and some of the best work I did was overcoming some of that adversity. So yeah, so I'm going now, 35 plus years, and recently, about a year and a half ago, reformatted and reformed my advisory business called Sunstone Management Advisors with some great partners. And the idea was, I had a track record for building and fixing things, as did my partners, and say, well, instead of trying to do that in one place and find the right scenario, let's help as many companies as we can as possible get better. Wide range of things, from strategy growth to fractional leadership to improving their margins. It's bringing to bear all the different things that I've learned and my partners have learned to help companies get better, and make that our mission. In fact, we do a fair amount of just brain pickage. Somebody calls, "Hey, I got an idea. What are you thinking about?" It's just, we're excited about the mission. And so, we get in the right scenario, we can get paid for it too. So it's taking all this learning and developing and success that we've had, and helping others with their journey. So that's what Sunstone Management Advisors is. And the last little bit is a little Sunstone. My history major, I got to throw this in. A Sunstone is actually a Norse navigation device. It was thought to be mythological, and it's a crystal that the Vikings used prior to compasses to find the sun in the sky when it wasn't there. Either it was behind the clouds or below the horizon. That's cool. We're going to help our clients, find their sun in the sky. So that's my quick background, and that's Sunstone.
That's awesome. I love that. Mike, think about leadership. I'm a simple minded guy. There's a lot of books, training courses. There's a lot of stuff out there under the heading of leadership, right? But I've always just been a firm believer in very simple things, and I've just personally boiled leadership down to 3 simple things, right? Leaders motivate and influence people to do things they may or may not even like or understand or be comfortable with, to the point where they kind of take ownership of it. Number 2, leaders grow new leaders. And number 3, leaders set people up for success. So real true example there of your story of you learning under people mentoring and teaching you rising through the ranks, and then turning around and paying it forward with the people that you can help, and build that next generation of leaders, help them prevent them making mistakes that have been made in the past, and help them with their decision making. So thank you for what you do. Not everybody out there in the world that has served in a leadership or management role has that mindset or willingness to go back out and lead and coach and mentor and consult, and care enough to get stay dirty in the trenches to help people figure things out in the benefit of everyone around them. That that work will create the next generation of success for years to come. And so thank you for making those sacrifices to do that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and I literally mean it. It's my pleasure. I mean, a long time ago, I decided that I liked coaching better than necessarily getting the results myself. It was
Yeah.
always more fulfilling for me to see the team I was with, improve, dramatically improve, or the player I was working with as an employee or youth sports, whatever, get demonstrably better. And some of it isn't always necessarily, that whether it was in sports or whatever, that they became more skilled. Some of it was a life experience. I mean, I would remember a young kid, he was diabetic and overweight, and he could, barely get up and down the basketball court, but it was a youth sports, right? So I completed an environment where he figured out how to contribute, and his mother came up and said it was transformational, that the kid developed a sense of confidence. And that's being aware of the kid and the player and putting them in a position to succeed. So, well, first of all, I think there's a cultural reference or litmus test that has to be passed for any leader to be successful. If they're creating it themselves, even better. But if they're inside of it, and you're in a team inside of something else a little more involved in. I know when I started to work, my father didn't go to college, got out of the military, was going to trade school, and then took a job loading reels in the old data rooms, and then ultimately became a computer programmer himself, and then retired after 35 years. He pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, you're going to go work in the corporate world." He said, "This was how I survived 35 years and thrived." And said, the first thing he said is out earn your pay. So no matter what you do, equal partnership, you give 51%. He said, that's your edge, and it's your pride, and should never, ever, ever let that down. No matter what is happening, you always, always out earn your pay. That's part of your pride. And I heard the great Bill Russell say his variation on it, which his father said, I don't care if you want to be a ditch digger or not. You be the world's greatest ditch digger, and they'll come from miles around and watch you dig ditches. You be more important to the job than the job is to you. That way you can tell your boss to go to hell. So a little bit of an angle there. I mean, my father's a little calmer about it than Bill Russell's dad, but it's still true. It's first and foremost, you're going to give 51%. You're going to, that's got to be your mindset. The second thing is you're not going to spend other people's money. And you get caught up in that kind of culture where, it's posturing and preening, the water cooler talk I've heard you talk about before, which is the cancer that destroys organizations. And the third thing is, don't get caught up in what other people are doing and the green-eyed goddess of envy and, start, well, how come I'm not this and I'm not that, and measuring yourself against others. And then the third thing he said is make sure your boss knows who you are, what you're doing. And if you're doing something that matters and you're doing something well, and you're with the right organization, everything works itself out. So again, very simple, trite, almost banal kinds of descriptions, but so powerful in their words. And I've been in those organizations where they're not there, and it's a heartbreak. So I start with that kind of culture and environment as my assessment I'm with the right company or not, and then I try to create that myself. The other thing I started to do early on when I first got into supervisory management roles is I used to call it Mikey Meets. I would sit down with everybody and just get to know them. And then over time, I said, the organization got more complex. I couldn't get to everybody. So I started to put it in writing, like, here's who I am. This is what you can expect out of me. And it became kind of a promissory note. And I had more and more folks tell me that as I left, they pulled that memo out and said, you were true to every word. And, what were those words? Well, again, back to my history major, I don't believe in the divine right of kings, right? So, but it's not to say it's not a democracy. We're not going to count the House. We're not necessarily going to be voting, and so, but I'm not, it's not that I'm not the king, and I tell everybody that they have a right to my trust right out of the gate. I don't have a right to theirs. I have to earn that. And so I set about that marker I put for myself with every individual I work with, saying, I want you to walk away from our interaction whenever our time is over and you say he's the best leader manager I've ever had. Now, you're not successful all the time with that, but that's my own little marker, and that's what I think about. And that's not indulging them. It's not giving them candies and cookies. It's being a proper leader and watching them grow. The second thing I talk about is ownership and accountability. And 100% ownership, 100% accountability, empowering people. There's a stress management model that says you figure out what you can control and you worry about that and don't worry about anything else. Well, I had a boss, if there was a big task and it didn't get done, he don't care if a hurricane ripped through or your house blew down. Good people find a way to make things happen, and it becomes a little scary, but empowering when you start seeing beyond Well, I can't control that now, but can I control it later? And if I take all consuming responsibility for this, goal, I'm going to be likely to be more creative in my problem solving. And then the other thing is we talk about is communication, open covenants, openly arrived at from the Treaty of Paris. And I tell everybody, don't don't rehearse your speech. You have a prodigal right to complain about the boss. I just don't shoot at me from behind rocks. Let me have it first. Come in, because there's a chances are I could be doing something wrong, and I want to hear from you, or I under communicate something, and we have kind of good task pressure. We just understand what the objectives are, and so we have a good dialogue there. But I said, don't. I'm not going to worry about how you're saying it. I'm going to get at the nugget of what it is that you're saying. So don't worry about making me upset or insulting me. You can't. I got thick skin. I know I'm flawed. I'm wonderfully imperfect. So it's okay if you point something out. In fact, if we create that kind of environment and you point something out, that's magic, right? Because now you've got the kind of dynamic you can go forward. And the last thing is, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. You got to have a bias towards action. We're accountable for results. That's what makes us go. It's an institutional relationship in that regard. I mean, we can have fun and do all kinds of social things together, but it's built on our responsibilities to one another in the organization. So I put all those things in writing and just say, you always get honesty from me. I will be transparent. You can say whatever you want to me. I'm not caught up. I'm not going to be the alpha wolf by baring my teeth. It's a Lord of the Flies thing. I think with my skills, I will get the juice to lead from inspiring you. And and everywhere I've gone, I start with that kind of modus operandi.
I love it. Humility and transparency. If you're out there listening, you know, leadership is simple. If you're humble and you're transparent in what you're doing every day of the week, and you're open into listening to people, and not being sensitive and critical, and thinking you're above somebody, boy, you can really make a powerful impact as a leader. People will respect you, look at you differently, and even open up to you, right? To make really great decisions as a leader, you need the best possible information. Well, where does the information lie? It lies in the brains of the people that you've hired, because they do the job every day. And so the better you know them, the better that um, relationship is, the more willing they are to share. And the more they're willing to share, the better informed you're going to be. And hopefully, at the end of the day, you can make the best decisions possible per the situation at hand, right? And so it's a team effort, man. And I thank you for outlining that. If you are a leader, whether you're just starting out in a new leadership role or you've been in a leadership role for a while, doesn't matter. Do you have a leadership kind of philosophy, a leadership mantra that you've developed that you can write down and you can hand to people or email to people and say, this is how I roll. This is how I think. This is, what's important to me. These are the things that I think are critical to success. Here's kind of my pet peeves of what will get you in trouble, and here are the things that will help make you successful. I remember sitting in a meeting with one of my bosses a number of years ago. The room's full of like 30 executive people, and he's sitting at the head of the table, and I was kind of his understudy. I was his executive assistant, if you will, and pretty much carrying his bags and doing all the crap for him that he needed done, right? Earning my stripes, so to speak. And we were going through some challenges in the organization, and he made it a point to talk about, folks, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about your career. It's not about your title. It's not about your next promotion. It's not about your bonus. It's not about your annual appraisal and saying you're the next genius of the world or whatever that may be. This is about the greater good of the organization. Where are you in it? These are the things that will make you successful. The first thing, and they only had three. The first and most important thing he talked about the most was, if you want to impress me, make somebody else in this room look good.
Hmm.
And everybody's sitting there like, what?
Yep.
He's like, you're all in this room because you're proven leaders. If you're not a proven leader, then we're going to have a conversation and we're going to talk more about that and how you can improve. But you're here because you're a proven solid entity that should be able to do the job. So you don't need to impress anybody. You don't need to one up anybody. You don't need to do any of those things. You just need to make other people in this room look good by having one-on-one meetings out of our meetings, figuring out how to team up and work together to help each other, because everybody in the room is going to need something from somebody at some point. And so how do we solve problems today as a team? I remember a guy named Mullally. He was the president and CEO of Ford Motor Company
Hmm.
from, I think it was like 2006, 2007 to around 2012, if I'm not mistaken. But he took over during the time of the recession. He came from Boeing. First time ever anybody in Ford, took over the helm of Ford without being in the automotive industry, right? He came from the aviation industry. And I remember in some, a speech he did, and later in a conversation I had with him, he talked about the power of the team. He sat in the executive meetings for the first couple of weeks, and how the culture was, show the boss everything that's green. Nobody showed the boss anything red. He said, "Man, I go out to these different factories, these different distribution centers, and these different dealerships and assembly plants, and I've got notebooks I'm filling up full of things I'm seeing, things people are telling me that I can help them with, but yet the executive corporate meetings are, yep, everything's looking good, boss."
Yeah.
He's like, "No, we're a team. We have to work really, really well together. There's no problem we can't solve as a team." And so I just think those things are really important. And you certainly are, embodying those things. But, Mike, I'm just curious, whatever got you into leadership in the first place? Was there a day you woke up and you're like, oh boy, what a great day to be a leader? I think I'm going to be a leader today. I'm going to go ask my boss if I can be a leader. Like, what happened? What lets you know you could be a potentially good leader, and just how did that happen? How did you figure all that out?
Yeah, I mean, like anything else, it's experience is a great teacher, and there's the old adage where a door closes and a window opens, and that sort of thing. And again, back to my Sherpa who said constantly do different things, and I was in a stage of my career where there was a path in front of me that was a little bit more of go into sales, right? And that you can make untold riches, and you're largely looking for your work for yourself, even though you're a large organization. But it's not, and you have a small little team, but you're really kind of on your own. Just grab your box of samples and off you go. And my Sherpa said, I think for you, and I was relatively young, I was probably 24, 25. And he said, I want you to get some management experience. So I'm going to ship you over here and you're going to manage 37 billing clerks, and they're all back in the day were smoking cigarettes and, it's like they're like, it was the back office of the company.
Yeah.
They were doing billing, like billing. Ugh. I'm a
Yay.
kid. I
Yeah.
want to go this. And he said to me, he goes, well, you need to learn no matter where you go in life. And these are the, checker box skills. You need to learn how to be a leader and supervise, even if you decide ultimately that you want to make riches and sell and be your own boss kind of thing. But this is a skill set you need. And then he said the other thing is that you're going to be challenged in ways you can't imagine right now, and it's going to teach you things about organization and about yourself, about managing stress. Because I was very linear, A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. Yeah, go. And when you get in these large corporations, it doesn't work that way. There's lots of external pressures and things you don't understand, and it's not logical, and there's politics. And if you're very linear like I was, you could lose your mind, and you have to learn how to navigate all of that. And I got into the role. I did it for 2 years, and it was everything he said it was going to be. But I came out of that, and I accomplished some things, and got the high of making an impact on these 37 people. Don't get me wrong. We didn't go find a cure for cancer. It was just dealing with overtime and cutting back on their number of hours and all that other stuff. And so it just gave me a sense of accomplishment that I said, that's what I want to do. I like getting results for others. And while that sales job might be all that great, so I actually went into sales management after that. So I'll skip past the sales thing and go right into sales management because I was so excited and buoyed by the experience, all the difficulties of leading people. I just felt it was such a high for me.
So you've had a phenomenal career. You've had many, many leadership roles. You've climbed the corporate ladder. You've figured out these things. And one of the things that you mentioned that one of your bosses did for you that I think was critical for success is move you around, give you a lot of experience in different departments, different functional areas. And so you've, learned, probably a little bit about a lot that's, allowed to propel you forward. And so now you're, in the position of senior leadership, right? You're at the CEO level of your career, and you start going to these different companies and you start taking things from one thing to something bigger. There's one instance where I see you started a new division of a company, and took it to $435 million in revenue in a relatively short amount of time. So how did you figure that out? What did it take from you to be able to go in kind of cold and figure things out and drive the ship in that direction and get that kind of success? 435 million is more than a lot of businesses make ever.
I know. Yeah, I consider, I've had a couple things, been very blessed. I look at it as kind of my Super Bowl wins, right? Like that was, and like anything else, there's a combination of things that, was I any better an executive when I did that as opposed to the couple of things that didn't come out so well? No. And so there's a little bit of luck, right example, and then and really the right leadership. So the person I was working for was an entrepreneur, self-made billionaire, didn't know anything about insurance, but knew success and saw opportunity, and then basically turned me loose. So he had the capital and I had the brain power. And then the other thing is to remember is that there's an old adage that nothing kills a bad product faster than good marketing. So you got to have something that works. I know there are companies that come up and suddenly they've got market valuations more than established enterprises and they're not making any money. I'm old fashioned in that regard. It's like you do, I guess Warren Buffett, just, you got to have a reasonable product that's bigger, faster, better, cheaper than the competition, and a total addressable market that's going to allow you to grow, and then you sustain it. And so what did I do? It started as there was only a handful of us. It was an established company. It had its own line of business. It was doing fine, but we were building a whole new division that was foreign to them. And I was very much dirt on the fingernails. We were going to be very cautious in how we spending our money. We didn't bring on a lot of staff until we could match revenue to expenses. And that meant as an executive, I had to be dirt under the fingernails, building the thing up. But, it's flash forward today, that business is well over $1 billion. And I look back and go, wow.
It's something to be proud of. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You feel great about it. And again, it wasn't easy. Every day was an interview. I used to joke, and so we had to kind of get through a lot. And because we were building something that was brand new. It was a insurance company that didn't exist in the space, and so we had to do some creative things. And we did some acquisitions and integrated those. And so there was no shortage of business challenges, but I'd say that, going back to the fundamentals, it starts with, again, even if you're a CEO, you've got a board, you've got investors. So you got to have that right environment you got to be of like mind in terms of what it is that you want to accomplish. And second of all, you got to have a business plan that's logical and makes sense and is real. And because your troops will understand whether the business model works or not, right? And so if you've
Yep.
got a good, strong business model, and then the last thing, which I was blessed to have, is build an unbelievable team, right? And so you suddenly invite all these co-authors into this masterpiece you're building, and it's not just yours. I mean, yeah, you take some quiet pride in what you accomplish, but you know damn well that if you didn't have some of those key players, you wouldn't have been successful. And so that's that humility that enters into it. So, I mean, I have all the confidence in the world in myself, and believe me, I can bend the rubber tree plant, but I also know if I'm not surrounded with a great team, I'm not going anywhere. And I can't, I can't make a business out of nothing, right? Those fundamentals got to be there. So it's got to be real.
So let's talk about where you went from there, right? So you've built many businesses. You've created something from nothing. You've taken it to, just immense levels of success. And then you figured out some things, and then you went into consulting and then helping other people figure out these things and get unstuck or figure out a new path or what was going wrong, et cetera. And you've come up with like a proven strategy. You've got some things you've kind of, benchmarked as, from your experiences. Talk to us about your proven strategies and how do you go into a business that wants to hire you? What are the first things you do? And kind of walk us through that a little bit and give us an idea of kind of your methodology behind the method behind the madness, so to speak.
Sure. So the first thing is our target client may not be somebody that's out necessarily looking for us, right? Then it's, I need to hire a management consultant. I mean, that's kind of a dreary existence that we all occupy, right? A management consultant, right? They're the first thing to go when the SG&A cuts are there, and so we start with kind of a dose of humility around our value, and we first focus on trying to build some sense of trust. Not, hey, I'm the shell answer man. I've got all the answers. I've got it all sorted out, because that's insulting, right? If you've got somebody that's trying to, you got to understand the human basal behavior, especially if you got founders or folks that were small to mid-sized businesses that have had some success and now it's maybe not going the way they want, and for them to kind of come to the conclusion that they might need some outside help. I mean, that's a pretty big personal journey, and so we try to be sensitive to that. And so often we just start with, I don't try to sell anybody anything. I'm not sticking my tin cup out. I'm not espousing our virtues. I'm just building a relationship and saying, if you need anything, just call me. I'm happy to spend an hour on the phone with you. The second thing is, once we're into a scenario where there's some expressed interest, we put question marks in of all our sentences. We don't go in exclamation point boiled and here's product A, product C. We got this turnkey, it's guaranteed. And that, and there are others that market themselves that way, right? There's like the shrink wrap thing. We're not shrink wrap. We're first going to spend a lot of time in discovery. And so we break down our projects with, the first part of it is a discovery project where it's, we try to make the cost as minimal as possible, where we go in and get underneath and with our eyes and with our ears and obviously with data, we can say we've got a pretty good picture of what's going on here. And here's the places that we can help. So the second phase is where we've kind of done the initial kind of fact finding. And then the second phase is, all right, here's what we're going to do. And as much as possible, we try to put a return on investment. We try to because our fundamental goal is to improve the enterprise value of the company. If we're burning expenses, we're not improving the enterprise value. So it's all about a return. And so sometimes, a client will say, gee, I really can use your help, but I really can't afford this. So we say, okay, let's, instead of saying no because, let's do yes if, and let's talk about how we might be able to leverage your resources versus ours. And maybe we can take some cost and put it as a success fee because we're confident in ourselves. Then obviously, then we execute. And if we can't help somebody, we step away. And we've done that before too. It's like, I can't help you. If somebody wants a pretty binder that's authored by Sunstone Management Advisors, they're not getting that from us. We're not excited by that. If that's what you want, not on us. But if you really want to get better and you really want to collaborate, then we're all game. But if you're not, don't waste our time. We won't waste yours.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Mike, so for folks that may be struggling, folks that may be, trying to figure out some answers, that's a great strategy. But what if you're doing well? I got a company, I'm doing well, I'm making money, I'm profitable, I'm, reaching my goals and things are going pretty darn smooth. What is your advice on people to continuously stay relevant, to revitalize, to continuously reinvest and grow and continuously add value to what they're doing, but their clients in the market? And what does it take? What are some of the best ways you've discovered to do well and to continuously do well so you minimize the risk of ever doing bad?
Great question. And success can be the enemy of long-standing innovation because you get the drug, right? And then you get and entrepreneurs, and we see this a lot, especially the innovators. Definition of success can mean a bunch of different things. I mean, it should be sustainable year over year, EBITDA growth and that sort of thing. But sometimes success is defined as I have investors pouring over themselves to get to me, or or they're looking out and they think they're seeing all this great result coming at them, and they're misreading the dials on the plane, right? They're just thinking we're doing great, it's all wonderful, and so they get a false sense of security, and I've seen that firsthand with the entrepreneur, and then you're in that position of pointing out that it's not going as good as you think it is, right? And maybe you need to think differently about what it is you're doing. Boy, that's a really hard conversation. And especially since a lot of these folks are wired by pushing through that flack, right? Because they hear that, no, you can't do that. And they're used to the naysayers. And they go, well, I'm going to go right through it. And there's certainly a time and a place for that. But there's another time and a place is that, wait a minute, am I being introspective? Am I asking myself the tough questions? And so there are certainly tools that go with it. First of all, if you've moved past kind of the development stage as a leader and as a CEO, and your team is full on engaged and you've pushed tasks down, now you as the CEO can truly take a hit off the crack pipe, stare out the window and go, what are we going to do 3 years from now, right? Because there's the ultimate role of the CEO is not just to be a logistics kind of COO heavy. And if you're the innovator and you've got that, and your revenue marketing person is killing it, your operations person killing it, finance person killing it, and the team's killing it, then you as the CEO need to be thinking about what's next. And there are tools in place to help with that. Obviously, a good strategic plan. Really look hard at your total addressable market. And if you're an early innovator and you're killing it, to think that you're going to sustain that and nobody's going to try to impersonate you or do anything. I mean, you're just, you're not thinking about your long-term success. And you have to think it's not just what are we doing in the next 2 to 3 years, is that 3, 4, 5 years out. Where's my total addressable market going? What are the disruptors? Where else is going? What's next for me? And that sort of thinking, and make that a viable, vibrant part of your planning process where you're engaging your team as well. Obviously, you're day in and day out, you're doing your thing, you're killing your balance sheet and your income statement, you're doing all that, but you need to be thinking about what's going to hit 3+ years out from now and start that conversation today. So there, a lot of that's just is a simple business plan and metrics around total addressable market and places to expand and places to go, and just, you can never be satisfied, right? And so I go back, one of my favorite quotes is Vince Lombardi, and he said, perfection is a goal that can never be attained, but if we pursue it all our might and capability along the way, we will find excellence. And so if you're a CEO and you've got success, keep that restlessness, right? And you got your organization, and start thinking about where you're going to go as an organization in the 3 to 5 year plus horizons, and stay hungry. And then the other thing, which is a flaw, is don't make sure you're reading your tea leaves right. Make sure you're reading your dials right. It's shocking to me how many organizations don't have a really sound instrumentation panel. I will tell you a story. It's, and you probably didn't understand it. And it was a publicly traded company, and with CEO, we ran into problems. And so of course we got to save our way to prosperity, cut expenses. This is a company that could not answer basic price mix volume question on its revenue. Revenue up, revenue down. I don't know why. No one knows. Nobody knows. Is it price? Is it mix? Is it volume? Don't know. So we were getting ready to try and build a data store and to try and get better control of our revenue. And had a big price tag. And he goes, well, that's the first thing that comes off. Cut that. And I said to him, I go, well, why are we cutting that? He goes, well, Walmart knows everything about its customers and it misses its numbers. So what makes us think we're going to be any better? And I said, well, you're a pilot, right? Yep. So those jets got that fancy avionics in it? Yep. Those things crash? Yep. Well, take all the avionics out then. What's the point? And he went, oh. So, so having a good balanced scorecard, metrics, not take the grease pen to make full, or empty look like full. Ask yourself the tough questions, and then have it built into your management structure that you are looking for the next thing. Because the market is such that even if you're onto something, if you hit a strain and the black oil's pouring out, you got to figure out ways that you're going to drill again, and it's got to be a fundamental part of your management process, fundamental part of your DNA, and it's got to be built in across the board of your culture.
Wonderful words. Great advice to business leaders out there that take things for granted, get too busy, and I guess ultimately the message is never be complacent.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's gotta be joy, right?
Yeah.
I do the same thing in my own business. We're still, we're trying to figure things out. We're always kind of trying to figure things out, and is it messaging and and that restless leg syndrome, right? There's a comedian, Stephen, had a great line. He goes, he said, when you ever lean back in your chair and you feel like you're going to fall, he says, I feel that way all the time. And it's true. The CEO and in the modern entrepreneur, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it's got to be invigorating. You're alive, right? You're not like I felt like as I was trying to breed captivity. The fact that you're scared and that you're moving, I mean, it's the stuff of life, and it should be exciting, and it's scary. Don't get me wrong. I've had those moments too, where you want to just burst into tears and go, how am I going to do this? But I don't know. I would trade for everything. And if you got that mindset, and you're unlikely to get caught off guard by something. You might make a mistake. I made them. I made the very mistake I just described to you 5 minutes ago. I made it myself. It happens
Yep,
to the best of us.
it does. Well, Mike, thank you so much for being on the show, man. You've given us just a treasure trove of different things to think about and just different life experiences, leadership lessons that I think people are really gonna, connect with and yeah, that's me, or yeah, I certainly don't want to be that. And so thank you for being on the show, man. You're an amazing guest. Folks want to learn more about you. They want to connect with you, maybe even work with you, hire you to do consulting or just have questions or whatever that may be. What's the easiest way for people to connect with you?
Sure. They can just go to sunstonemanagementadvisors.com, all one word, /soar higher. And you can book time with me. You can ask a question. Obviously have a pretty robust website with lots of stuff on it for you to kind of download and look at. But that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. And
Yeah,
like I said, I spend a fair amount of my time just talking to folks without a commercial relationship. And because it keeps me invigorated, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on out there in the space.
that's right.
And if somebody's going to take the time to explain their business to me, it's an honor. And if I can, offer some pearl or nugget that says, "Oh, I went with it. You can try this," or I know a guy, the famous "I know a guy, I know a gal" kind of thing, the super connector role. Those things are invaluable as well. So I'm happy to do it all day long.
That's awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for that. We're also going to put all of his contact information in the show notes so we can make it easy for you. So if you're driving down the road listening to this on your way home or to work or wherever you may be running on the trails or whatever, you may be listening to the podcast, you don't have a chance to write things down or whatever, we're going to put it in the show notes. Just click on it. It'll take you right to Mike and his company, and you can connect it with them in whatever way you'd like to. So great show, great episode. Hope you got a lot out of it, right? Today we talked a lot about leadership. We talked about the value of putting other great people, other great leaders around you, whether they're in your company or externally in your company, getting a mentor. Mike talked a lot about that today. The value of Sherpas and mentors and coaches and people that may have different perspectives, different experiences than you. They can see things or have knowledge and skills and things, may have made mistakes or whatever that you may or may not have experienced yet, that can really be invaluable. So surround yourself with really good, trusted people that have been there and done that, and are good, quality, caring people that want to help you, want to see you succeed. It takes everybody to work together. I certainly have had a lot of leaders and mentors and people, guiding and directing me in my career. Mike certainly has from his story today. And so if you don't, then reach out to me, reach out to Mike, reach out to others that, may be in your area that you can surround yourself with and think, right? You, as a leader, you need to be able to think and be proactive and get ahead of things and stay relevant and competitive and always be looking to improve. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of success and you're going to celebrate that success and high fives and beers and parties, and all that's good and well, and you should do that. But as a leader, you should always, the next day when you wake up, be thinking about, how do we continue to be relevant? How do I continue to empower my people? How do I continue to help them realize their dreams? How do I help my clients realize their dreams? And when you do those things, great things happen in the world. And when that happens, the world is potentially a better place. And I think if we can all, go to our graves knowing that we may have made a difference in making the world better, I think that's what it's all about. So that's it for today's show, everybody. Next week, we've got another great expert guest on the show. We're talking about a huge, huge need in the market today, and that is the workforce training and development. How to close the gaps that we're seeing out there in people that are struggling to find the right people with the right skills and the right, talents and abilities to work together as a team and stay together and retain that culture and that, those things on a sustainable level that helps you thrive. Things are kind of just very fractured today in our world. And so next week, we're going to be talking about how to close those gaps, bring people together, train and develop people for the long run, and how amazing those results are. You won't want to miss that. Have a great week, everybody.